Something powerful is already working in your life right now, and you cannot see it. Not when you are scrolling, not when you are worrying, not even when you are trying your hardest to fix everything. It begins when the world goes quiet, when your body finally lets go, when your mind slips into that space between control and surrender. This message is for the one who feels tired without knowing why. The one who keeps pushing, keeps trying, keeps hoping, but still feels stuck in the same place. You are not broken, you are not behind. You are just missing something that most people never learn. There is a silent shift that happens at night, a hidden movement, a quiet rearrangement of things that no amount of force during the day can create. While you are resting, something deeper than effort begins to move. Something spiritual, something precise, something guided. But here is the part that changes everything. It does not respond to your actions. It responds to your assumptions. Most people will never hear this, not because it is hidden, but because they stop too soon. They chase more work, more stress, more control. They try to force life into shape with their hands while ignoring the one moment where creation happens without resistance. The moment when your guard is down, the moment when your mind is open, the moment when belief slips in quietly and begins to take root. Right now, there is a belief sitting inside you, a quiet sentence you repeat without noticing, about money, about success, about what is possible for your life. And that belief, it does not sleep. It works in the background. It builds patterns. It attracts or blocks without asking your permission. It either opens doors while you rest or keeps them closed no matter how hard you push during the day. This is why some people wake up to unexpected opportunities, new ideas, sudden clarity, a shift that feels almost divine. And others wake up to the same cycle, the same struggle, the same heaviness. The difference is not effort. It is not luck. It is not even timing. It is what they carry into the night. But before I tell you how to use this to activate real wealth in your life, stay with me, because what comes next will completely change how you see rest, belief, and even God's role in your success. There is a way to align yourself with a force that does not need noise, a way to let go without losing control, a way to allow wealth to begin forming before you even open your eyes in the morning. And once you understand this, you will never go to sleep the same way again. So if something in you feels drawn to this, if a quiet part of you knows there is more than just struggle and repetition, then you are exactly where you need to be. Welcome to the channel. If this message resonates with you, subscribe now, because what you are about to learn might be the shift you have been waiting for all along. There is a reason you keep trying harder and still feel like nothing is moving. It is not because you are doing life wrong. It is not because you are not strong enough. There is something deeper at play, something invisible that quietly shapes your results without asking for your effort. Do not skip this part, because this is where most people make the biggest mistake. You wake up with good intentions, you push yourself, you think more, plan more, try to fix more. But instead of progress, you feel resistance, like something inside you is pulling the brakes while you are pressing the accelerator. And over time, that feeling turns into frustration, then doubt, then a quiet voice that starts asking, maybe this just is not meant for me. But here is something most people do not know. Your brain filters reality based on what it already believes is true. Scientists call it a cognitive bias, where your mind literally ignores opportunities that do not match your inner belief system. That means if somewhere deep inside you believe money is hard to get, your mind will quietly block the very chances that could change your life. Not because they are not there, but because they do not match what you assume. So no, you are not lazy. You are not unmotivated. You are not missing something everyone else has. You are simply carrying a belief that is working against you day and night. And the more you try to force results without changing that belief, the more stuck you feel. Here is the truth nobody says out loud. You were never broken. You were never lost. You were always exactly where you needed to be. And once you see this, something begins to open. Because if a belief can block your path, it can also unlock it. And what I am about to share next, nobody talks about this, but it changes everything. There is a quiet law shaping your life right now, even if you have never noticed it before. It does not ask for your permission. It does not wait for you to believe in it. It simply responds to what you assume is true. Do not skip this part, because this is where everything begins to shift. Most people think change comes from action, from effort, from pushing harder. But beneath all of that, There is something far more powerful working in silence, your assumptions, the quiet beliefs you repeat without words, the feelings you accept as normal. These are not passive thoughts, they are instructions, and your mind follows them with precision. Here is something most people never hear. Your brain cannot fully separate imagined experiences from real ones, especially when emotion is involved. That means the feeling you carry at night, the story you believe before sleep, your mind begins to treat it as reality. It starts adjusting your behavior, your focus, even your opportunities around it. Not loudly, not instantly, but steadily. And this is where it becomes personal. Because without realizing it, you have been carrying something into your nights. Maybe quiet worry, maybe doubt about money, maybe a feeling that things never work out for you. And while you sleep, that assumption does not rest. It repeats, it deepens. It echoes into the next day, shaping what you notice, what you miss, and what you believe is possible. What you assume at night echoes into your reality by morning. And once you truly see this, something inside you starts to shift. Because if your nights have been quietly working against you, they can just as powerfully begin working for you. And what I am about to share next, nobody talks about this, but it changes everything. What if the very thing you are waiting for has already started moving toward you, but in a way you would never expect? Not through struggle, not through force, but through silence you have been overlooking all along. There is a common belief that blessings must be loud to be real, that progress must be visible, that if nothing is changing on the surface, nothing is happening underneath. But life does not always work that way. Some of the most important shifts begin where no one can see them, in timing, in alignment, in quiet rearrangements that only reveal themselves later. Here is something rarely spoken about. In nature, some of the most powerful transformations happen in stillness. Seeds do not grow by effort. They grow by alignment with conditions they cannot control. They simply respond. And in many ways, human life follows a similar pattern more than we realize. There are seasons where nothing seems active, yet everything is preparing. And this is where faith becomes more than a word. Because when you are in a moment of waiting, it can feel like nothing is happening for you. But silence is not absence, it is preparation. It is adjustment. It is unseen movement, aligning things you could never force into place on your own. God works in silence more than noise. And maybe that is why you have felt stuck at times. Not because nothing is happening, but because you are expecting movement in the wrong form. You are looking for signs that are loud, while the real work is happening quietly in the background of your life. And if that thought brings even a little comfort, it means something inside you is already softening, already opening, already trusting again in a way you may not have in a long time. And what I am about to reveal next will show you the exact moment most people block this quiet flow without even realizing it. And it changes everything. There is a moment every night when your life becomes more powerful than your effort. A moment most people waste without realizing what is happening inside them. Right before sleep, your mind enters a unique state where the barriers between thoughts and belief become thinner. Neuroscientists call this the hypnagogic state, where brainwaves slow down and the subconscious becomes highly active. This is when suggestion, emotion, and belief begin to sink deeper than they ever could during a busy day. Do not skip this part, because this is where most people make the biggest mistake. They treat bedtime like an ending, but it is not an ending, it is a doorway. A sacred window where your inner world starts shaping your outer world with less resistance than any other moment in the day. This is why the last thoughts you carry before sleep matter more than you think. Not because of superstition, but because your mind continues processing them long after your eyes close. It organizes them, expands them, connects them to memory, emotion, and expectation. And here is where everything begins to shift. Wealth is not only something you chase while awake. It is something that can be activated while you rest. Not through effort, but through alignment. Through what you allow yourself to believe when the world is quiet and your defenses are down. Think about how powerful that is. The idea that your rest is not wasted time, but a fertile space where your future is being influenced in silence. Here is the truth most people miss. The mind does not stop working when you stop trying. It keeps building on whatever you last gave it. And once you understand this, you stop ending your days randomly. You start choosing them. You start placing intention where there used to be noise, and something inside you begins to feel different, lighter, more open, almost expectant. And what I am about to show you next is the one thing most people do right before sleep. that completely blocks this activation without them ever knowing it. What you do in the last moments before sleep might be quietly shaping your entire financial reality without you realizing it. Most people think nighttime is harmless, just rest, just distraction, just scrolling until the eyes feel heavy. But in reality, those final moments are when your mind becomes most absorbent, and whatever you feed it becomes the emotional blueprint it carries into the subconscious overnight. Negative self-talk, worry about money, replaying failures, endless scrolling through other people's lives, fear dressed up as just thinking. These are not small habits, they are signals. And your subconscious does not judge them, it stores them. There is a lesser known fact in neuroscience. During sleep, especially deep sleep cycles, the brain strengthens the emotional pathways that were most active before sleep. This means whatever feeling dominates your final waking thoughts is more likely to be reinforced internally, not magically, but biologically. So if the last thing you feel before sleep is stress, your system learns stress. If the last thing you carry is scarcity, your system rehearses scarcity. And over time, it becomes your default state without you even noticing. What you carry into sleep, you multiply. And this is where concern begins to rise, because it is not just about one night, it is about repetition. Night after night, layer after layer, quietly shaping your expectations, your decisions, and what you believe is possible for you. And maybe now you are starting to see why things feel stuck. It was never only about the day. It was about what the day ends with. But here is the shift. If this pattern can be created unconsciously, it can also be changed intentionally. And what comes next is the simplest adjustment that most people ignore, yet it completely changes what your nights begin to build for you. What if the change you are searching for is not in doing more, but in finally believing something different before you sleep? Most people think transformation requires effort, repetition, or discipline. But the mind does not respond deeply to force, it responds to emotional certainty. A quiet assumption held with feeling often reshapes behavior, more than hundreds of forced affirmations spoken without belief. There is a lesser-known psychological finding that when a thought is paired with emotion and repeated in a relaxed state, the brain treats it as a lived experience rather than a suggestion. That means what you emotionally accept before sleep is not just a thought, it becomes a reference point your mind returns to. Do not skip this part, because this is where most people make the biggest mistake. They try to think positive in a way that feels artificial. But real change does not come from forcing words. It comes from choosing a belief that feels slightly uncomfortable at first, but quietly familiar at the same time. So here is the assumption that changes everything. Not as a command, not as pressure, but as a soft agreement with yourself. Money flows to me in ways I do not need to force, because I am aligned with receiving it. You do not need to repeat it endlessly. You do not need to chase it. You simply allow it to sit with you, especially in the quiet moments before sleep, where resistance is lowest and honesty is highest, and something subtle begins to happen. At first, doubt may rise. Old patterns may resist it. But if you stay with it gently, without forcing, it starts to feel less like a statement and more like a possibility your mind is willing to explore. And that is where belief begins to form. Because once your inner world accepts even a small shift in possibility, your outer world starts adjusting in ways you do not expect. And what happens next is where most people unknowingly break this process. Right at the exact moment it starts working. Why does it feel like the more you try to control everything, the heavier your life becomes? Most people do not realize this, but there is a hidden tension inside constant control. It creates pressure not just in your actions, but in your nervous system. And over time, that pressure begins to feel like stagnation, even when you are working harder than ever. Here is something rarely talked about. In psychology, there is a concept called ironic control effect. The more intensely you try to force a specific outcome, the more your mind becomes hyper-aware of its absence, and that awareness actually increases stress, which reduces clarity and natural decision-making. So it is not just about effort, it is about energy. Do not skip this part, because this is where most people make the biggest mistake. They think letting go means doing nothing, but real letting go is not absence of action. It is absence of inner resistance. It is still moving forward, still showing up, but without the emotional grip that says, this must happen or I am failing. There is a difference between effort and tension. One creates flow, the other creates friction. And when you begin to trust instead of force, something unexpected happens. You stop scattering your energy across fear. You stop overcorrecting every moment. And slowly your actions become clearer, lighter, more aligned. Here is where it becomes powerful. Trust does not slow manifestation. It removes the resistance that delays it. You are not giving up. You are releasing the illusion that you must carry everything alone. And in that release, there is a quiet shift, a sense that you are no longer fighting life, but moving with it. And just when that peace begins to settle in, there is one final layer most people never consider: the subtle signs that everything is already responding in ways you cannot yet see. How do you know something unseen is actually changing your life when nothing on the surface looks different yet? Most people expect proof in the form of big results, sudden money, clear breakthroughs, obvious shifts, but real transformation rarely starts there. It begins quietly, almost invisibly, in the way you think, feel, and respond to everyday moments. Here is something surprising from cognitive psychology. When a belief begins to shift, the first measurable change is not external behavior. It is internal attention. You start noticing different things. New ideas appear slightly more often. Old worries lose a little intensity. This is the brain recalibrating before reality catches up. And that is exactly what most people miss. Do not skip this part, because this is where most people make the biggest mistake. They ignore the small signs because they are waiting for something dramatic. But the process does not announce itself loudly, it whispers. A moment of unexpected calm where there used to be anxiety, a thought that feels more hopeful than familiar fear, a small opportunity that seems random but feels strangely aligned. You might even find yourself reacting differently to things that used to overwhelm you. Not because everything has changed outside, but because something is shifting inside first. This is how alignment begins, and slowly the obsession with when will it happen starts to lose its grip. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started trusting something deeper than timing. That is when confidence begins to replace doubt. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence. The kind that does not need constant proof. And once you reach this stage, something even more important starts to unfold. The realization that these signs were never random at all, but part of a much bigger system responding to you in real time. And what comes next will reveal what most people misunderstand about timing itself, and why it often feels delayed right before everything changes. Everything you have heard in this video was never really about money alone. It was about something deeper. The quiet patterns running your thoughts, the unseen beliefs shaping your results, the way your inner world has been speaking even when you were not listening. You started this journey feeling tired, maybe even frustrated. Like no matter how much effort you put in, something still felt blocked. Then you began to see it differently. How much of life is shaped before action even begins. How your thoughts before sleep carry more weight than you ever realized. How silence is not empty. It is active. It is building something in the background. And slowly, that confusion turns into awareness. Awareness turns into understanding. And understanding begins to soften something inside you that has been tense for a long time. Here is the one takeaway you should carry with you. Your life is not only shaped by what you do during the day, but by what you accept, believe, and feel when everything becomes quiet. That is where real change begins. Not in force, not in struggle, but in alignment. In what you allow yourself to hold when no one else is watching. Before you go, read this one last thing carefully. This might be the most important thing in this entire video. You do not need to fix everything tonight. You do not need to figure out your entire future. You only need to become aware of what you are carrying into your silence and gently choose something different. Everything you just heard, you already knew. Deep inside, you just needed someone to remind you. And maybe tonight is not just another night. Maybe it is the first night where you stop ending your day with stress and start ending it with trust, not forced trust, not perfect trust. Just enough to open a new direction. If this message spoke to you in any way, take a moment to like the video. Not for the algorithm, but as a small signal that you are ready for a different inner pattern. And subscribe, because there is more coming that will continue to guide you through this shift in a simple, grounded way. And as you move forward from here, just remember, the quietest changes are often the ones that reshape everything. And what you are about to discover next might be the missing piece that makes all of this finally click into place.